Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and welcome to the daily cyber briefing for Monday, the 31st of July. Sorry about the silence prior to that. The headset that I'm using for this decided it wasn't going to talk to Restream. So, yeah, great. So much for testing it all before I go online. Never mind. Anyway, a Linux variant of the Abyss Locker designed to target VMware ESXi servers is doing the rounds at the moment. It's not new, but it is, I am led to believe, extending its scope to focus on VMware environments. Basically, once the malware has got a toehold on the underlying host, uses API calls, I believe, to switch off or basically terminate sessions for the guests. Once the guests have been shut down, the ransomware can then encode the underlying disk file. So usual stuff with this. It appends a .crypt extension to the file names of the encrypted systems, and there's a .readme to restore file which gives details of where to go if you so feel like engaging with the malware team in order to pay them off, which is clearly a decision you would need to make, but you never know. Once they've got your data and they've encrypted it, you may never get it back. They'll probably release it or sell it on anyway. So there we go. There are other bits of malware. This particular one, known as the Abyss Locker, but there are Avios Locker, Blackbuster, Black Matter, Hello Kitty, Lockbit, Luna, Ransom, EXX, REvil, Royal, and so on. So there's quite a lot of stuff. So if you are using VMware ESXi, it's a good idea to make sure that you have protected the underlying host server adequately to avoid being caught with these sorts of things. So I think gone are the days when you can say, well, it doesn't really matter because nobody can get to the underlying VM host. These days there are vulnerabilities and malware to exploit them that do give that access, which of course, if you're running a big VM estate, gives the attackers very simple access to all sorts of things that you may or may not be doing. There's also been an update over the last few days regarding the recent Microsoft breach, where a key was stolen and authentication tokens signed off that gave attackers access to what was originally thought to be focused on Exchange Online. It has become apparent that the signed authentication tokens would give the attacker access to a much wider range of Microsoft services, mainly because, if you think about it, it's fairly obvious, they all rely on the same authentication mechanisms in the background. If you're in Outlook and you start up SharePoint, it doesn't prompt you for authentication. It checks the token, see if the token's valid, and if it does, it kicks off your session. Firstly, the impact therefore may be greater than had originally been thought. But one of the things that has come out of this is that the stolen security key had expired in 2021, and there are questions being asked in the US Senate around how come Microsoft's expired keys could be used to validate authentication tokens now. Um, there is a feeling, I think, amongst politicians in the US that Microsoft may talk a good talk, but they're not doing such a good job in the background of actually securing stuff. Now, I think that is entirely probably a little unfair. Microsoft, whilst many years ago were not renowned for either stable or secure software. Microsoft invests millions because their reputation depends on it. So I doubt if this is an indicator of a slack attitude or approach internally in Microsoft. However, equally, clearly their key handling processes are not where they should be. Mistakes happen. We'll all get hacked eventually. But yeah, to have both lost the security key and then to have not expired it in such a way that systems won't accept that key going forward, I think is a little concerning. There are, by the way, some interesting features around expiry of keys. Um, Depending on, because originally PKI, I don't think PKI was designed to scale to the level that it's at today. So there is a concept of key revocation or certificate revocation servers, which you should be able to check to see whether the certificate that you're being presented with, and this goes for websites as well as anything else. Whether the key is still valid or not. A lot of that, the required infrastructure to do that at scale was never put in place, and it relies on individual organisations that run their PKI environments to actually maintain all of that stuff, and to a large extent, it's a client side decision as to whether to accept the key or not. So yes, you can do validity checking, but if the validity checking fails, and as a human, you see this. Fortunately, not very often these days, but you do see the certificate for this website has expired. Do you really want to go to this website? Stuff. Well, that's client side. That's your browser. Giving you that option. They could code the browser to say nay, never, but they don't, because functionality still often trumps security, which is a little worrying. So I don't know. It may be that actually this is as simple as the components in this particular chain weren't set to reject expired keys, which presumably is just a setting somewhere. I don't know, because there's a lot going on behind in the background with this. Microsoft plays down a lot of this, and it is entirely possible that they have. Microsoft has got access to logs that mere mortals and researchers don't have, and so they may be looking at it, going, "Well, actually, we know that we caught this before anything too serious happened, or it was serious enough there." But it is kicking around in the background that the US government may be looking to implement what they're describing as an all of government or whole of government approach to looking at how to work with Microsoft from a security perspective. The attackers, by the way, do appear to be a Chinese linked group, and it is most likely that they were just, as is the way with a lot of state-sponsored Chinese stuff, they were just looking to sweep up data, which may become useful in the future. So yeah, there we go. That's one. You can't do anything much about this from a end user perspective, but it is worth following these things because it may help you to make decisions around which cloud services that you want to work with, or at least give you some questions that you can ask your cloud providers, and hopefully they can give you a good answer to these things. And then finally, from me, I'm sure not so much in the cyber space, but it's an interesting twist to an ongoing saga. So Elon, having recently renamed Twitter as X, and made effectively killing off the Twitter brand, has discovered that they can't use X as the name for their app on the App Store because the App Store has a minimum character requirements. So basically, you can't have single character apps in the App Store. Although apparently, if you update the Twitter app on Apple, you get an X. The app is still called Twitter. So don't know where this one's going to go, but I think it is indicative of what should we say, a gung ho approach to rebranding and so on. I guess Elon doesn't really care; he's got enough money. But if he wants to rename Twitter X, not bad. Not a fan of Twitter. It seems to be full of people hell bent on fighting each other. Just a bunch of trolls, from what I can see. Nothing very useful on it. There we go. My personal view. Your views may differ. Well, welcome to them. But yeah, so if he wants to rebrand it as X and he wants to turn it into something else, well, he owns it. He can do what he likes. It doesn't really matter. But it doesn't look like there is a lot of thought being put into some of these things. If you were going to rebrand something that's a global brand, actually making sure that you can use the name would think would be kind of paramount. Anyway, interesting one. We'll see. What's the betting that Apple will make an exception for X? Who knows? Anyway, that's all from me for today. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you all again.